وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. So last week we were reading a few stories about some of the first converts, or the first people to embrace the message that was sent through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we're going to continue talking about that, inshallah. But before we continue talking about that, we want to stop and rewind way back, over 200 years, and talk about some history that will give us like a context for a lot of things that come afterwards. And we talked about this before. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad, his father is Abdullah. His father is? He's right. Abdul Muttalib. So that's two. Abdullah, Abdul Muttalib. His father is Hashim. Who are they? Three fathers. Who are they? Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Abdul Muttalib, Hashim. Hashim's father. Yes. Abdul Manaf. Can we go one more? It starts with a Qaf. No, Kinana is way back. Qusay. So we have Abdullah, before Abdullah, Abdul Muttalib. Before Abdul Muttalib, Hashim. Before Hashim, Abd Manaf. Before Abd Manaf, Qusay. In Arabic, it's spelled like this. Qaf, Sad, and a Ya with the shadda. Do you have a tissue? I got it. We want to go back today, inshallah, to this man, Qusay. What's his father? His father's name is Kilab. We're going to stop at Qusay. Qusay, historically, is a big deal. Qusay is basically the founder of Quraish. Qusay is the one who made Quraish. The Quraish that our Prophet ﷺ was a member of, he was born into, and the Quraysh that, for the most part, opposed him in the message that he was sent with, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Qusay, when he was born, there was no such thing as Quraish. When he was a young man, there was no such thing as Quraish. And at the time, in Mecca, there was a different people in charge, taking care of the Kaaba. Who were those people? Yeah, after Jurhum. Starts with a Kha. Who's Khuza'a? Before Qusay, Khuza'a, and they say that Khuza'a was in charge of Mecca for 300 years. So that is, if that's accurate, and we can estimate that Qusay lived over 200 years before our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the tradition says that for the 300 years before that, Khuza'a, they were the ones in charge of the Kaaba. They held the key to the Kaaba. They were the custodians of the Kaaba, and Mecca was their town. This is Khuza'a. And Khuza'a, it's worth remembering Khuza'a. There's these historical reasons, and Khuza'a throughout the mission of the Prophet ﷺ, they will keep coming up. And Khuza'a, they played a big role in the eventual conquest of Mecca. And throughout the Seerah, people from Khuza'a keep on coming up. Khuza'a, they were the custodians of the Kaaba of Mecca. The chief, the leader of Khuza'a, was a man named Hulayl. He was the chief of Khuza'a. He was the one in charge of Mecca. He was their leader, and he was the one who was the steward of the Kaaba. He had a daughter. He had a daughter named, and we're going to mention a lot of different names. If it ever gets confusing, stop. And I'll repeat it, because there's a lot of names, and it can easily get too much. He had a daughter named Hubba. This man, Qusay, he grew up with, it's not what we want to go into, there's a whole long story here. He grew up with his stepfather in a different place with a people called Allah. When he got older, he moved to Mecca, and Qusay married this woman, Hubba. This man, Hulayl, he didn't have any sons. You would expect that privileges like this, they're passed from father to son. Hulayl didn't have any sons. He had this daughter, his eldest daughter, named Hubba, and her husband, Qusay. And she gave birth to 4 sons to Qusay. in his lifetime, he would have hold the key to the Kaaba. If he ever got sick or busy, he would give it to his daughter. He would entrust her with the key to the Kaaba. If she got sick or busy, she would give it to her husband, who was Qusay. They had we'll mention those names in a minute. They had 4 sons in the lifetime of Hulayl. We know one of those sons was named Abdmanaf. Hulayl wanted that privilege to stay in his line, to stay in his offspring, and his grandsons, even though they weren't the sons of his son, but that's all he had. He wanted to keep that in his descendants. So he, what do you call it? He passed that on to his daughter and to Qusay after his death. That was his will. The stewardship of the Kaaba be given to Qusay and to the sons of Qusay, because they're his sons. Those are the only sons he has. That was his testament. That was his will. When he died, the rest of Khuza'ah, they weren't very happy about that. They wanted to, he's not one of them. They don't have the same perspective that Hulayl has. They wanted to take that, the key to the Kaaba back. They wanted to take that office back for themselves. That led to a confrontation. There was a fight, there was a battle, and it was resolved in the favor of Qusay. Qusay won. He was, the key to the Kaaba was surrendered to him. The custodianship of Mecca was given to him. And because there was that conflict, that battle, he called as many of his relatives as he could, different branches from Kinana that are closely related to him. He brought them all together and he settled them in Mecca to consolidate things for him. So he's not just there alone among hostile people. He's surrounded by his allies. That was how Quraish was made. And there are a lot of different theories about the name Quraish, where it comes from, what it means. Nobody knows for sure, but one of the most probable interpretations of the meaning of the word Quraish is that it comes from different parts. Because like even today in some countries they say a kirsh. You know what a kirsh is? In Egypt, like $1 is called a pound, jineh. A cent is a kirsh. It's a little piece of a pound. So that's one of the meanings of that word Quraish. It's little pieces brought together. By him doing that, he made Quraish. That was the beginning of Quraish. He brought them and he settled them inside Mecca. They eventually became around about a dozen different families. In the beginning of this book, he has a map where or a family tree, where I think he lists, I think, 11 different branches of Quraysh. They're not all, usually a tribe is a bunch of people that go back to the same father. It's not exactly the case here, because it's this man, Qusay, and the families of some of his uncles or his cousins. He brought them together and he made Quraysh. Do you have the book? We'll do it. Deal with it later. Like we said, Qusay, Hubba gave birth to 4 sons to Qusay. We already know one of them was Abd Manaf. Abd Manaf wasn't the eldest one. Half of the class. Qusay had 4 sons. We know Abd Manaf. Abd Manaf isn't the oldest one. The oldest, he had an elder brother named Abd ad-Dar. Abd ad-Dar. And there were 2 other brothers. One was named Abd al-Uzza. And the other one was named just Abd. And Abd al-Uzza, obviously that's a pagan name. And Uzza is one of their idols in Jahiliyyah. I've read that Manaf was another idol. This name, Abd ad-Dar, I've never heard any explanation for what it meant. And the word ad-Dar, it just means land or a homeland. And his name is just Abd. A lot of the names from Jahiliyyah, they had particular meanings that were forgotten. In the lifetime of their parents, Qusay and Hubba, Abd Manaf in particular became very popular, very influential, very powerful, and very wealthy. And his prestige, it exceeded all of his other brothers, even his eldest brother, Abd ad-Dar. They say that out of pity for their eldest son, and to sort of even things up between him and Abd Manaf, who had become more prestigious and more popular and more influential, Qusay entrusted certain things gave certain privileges to Abd ad-Dar. And these privileges, these offices, they have to do with being in charge of Mecca and being in charge of the Kaaba. Some of these things are things that he inherited from those who were in charge of the Kaaba before him. And some of these things are things that he initiated. He's not the first one in history to do these things, but he's the one who started them for Quraysh. And this is part of how Qusay made Quraysh. He not only did he create them, bring them all together, he started all of their traditions, a lot of their religious traditions and their political traditions as well. Everything goes back to Qusay. There were six offices that came with being in charge of Mecca. Some of these are political things, and some of these are both religious and political. These six things are the office of gatekeeper. What does that mean? Yes, yes. That's how they translate it. They call it hijaba in like hijab, because hijab is someone who blocks something, and he's in charge of the door. A big part of that office is holding the key to the Kaaba, but it also involves taking care of the Kaaba. Even cleaning the Kaaba is part of that office. There is the office of water supplier, and they call it in Arabic siqai. What does that mean?
Supply the water for the building.
Exactly. This is a big thing because you need water to live. And back in those times, water is the equivalent of gas for your car. You need water to live. And to come to Mecca, if you're coming from outside, most people come on animals, and the animals need to drink. And there are no rivers in Mecca. There were only a few wells. The well of Zamzam was not rediscovered until a few generations later. Abdul Muttalib redug the well of Zamzam. Before that, there are a few wells here and there. So all of these pilgrims coming to Mecca, they can't stand in line behind one well and take turns drawing the water for themselves. So it's a responsibility for some of the custodians of Mecca to provide water for them. And we'll talk about exactly details of this. Sometimes it was not just water. Sometimes they would provide milk for them, camel milk for them. Sometimes the water they would, especially they say Zamzam water, they would treat it with raisins and dates. They would sweeten it because Zamzam water, still, if you taste Zamzam water, it's hard, it's heavy. And they say back before it was even heavier. So it needed to be softened with something sweet. That's one responsibility or one office that is part of being in charge of Mecca. The third one is caterer. You should know.
Like provide the food.
Yeah. And this is kind of something that Qusay invented. It's not just providing hospitality. The way Qusay invented it was when Qusay was in charge, he was like the king. What he said goes, and all of the people in Mecca and were obedient to him. They were loyal to him. He, in his lifetime, he would like take a tax from everyone else. Everyone else would have to give him a tribute, and he would take everything that they gave, and he would provide meals for the Hajjaj. If I'm not mistaken, in Jahiliyyah, part of that's so far so good. But part of this in Jahiliyyah, if I'm not mistaken, is that they would not allow anyone else, they couldn't bring outside food into Mecca. If you are a pilgrim, you can't eat your own, you have to eat the food provided for you by Quraish. So it's a good thing on one hand, but it's also kind of, a prestige as well. These three offices are, there's any prestige in them, but they're also religious responsibilities. They have to do with taking care of the Kaaba and looking after the Hajj. There are three other offices that are basically political. One is chair of the council, or like the chair of the Senate or the Congress. This particular thing is something that was started by Qusay. They used to call this Dar al-Nadwa. And it's like the Alaikum Salam to Allah. It's like the House of Representatives or the town hall or the Senate. Any public matter that needs to be decided, whether it's war or peace, or even organizing their trade caravans.